Okay, so I had no intention of talking about LeBron and Steph tonight. Wasn't planning on really getting into that unless Steph got the trophy, which obviously there's still one more step there. But I do think Steph will end up getting the trophy. I typically don't care anywhere near as much about all-time player rankings now as I did when I was younger. I bought into that stuff a lot more when I was younger. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm a lot more, just aware of the fact that this situation is way too complicated. Everyone's way too entrenched. Like all of you Warriors fans listening, you think Steph was better. I can't tell you you're wrong. I disagree with you, but I can't tell you you're wrong. Like, and there is no static environment. This is not tennis. This is a team sport. Not only does talent play a role, injuries play a role, makes and misses play a role. I mean, I watched a play-in game last year where Steph vastly outplayed LeBron for the entire game. Now, LeBron was hurt and just come back from injury, but Steph, resoundingly outplayed LeBron, and LeBron made a wild contested three at the end of the shot clock and stole the game. Basketball is a team sport. It's not tennis. None of this stuff ever just comes down to LeBron won, therefore he's better than Steph. Or Steph won, therefore he's better than LeBron. This stuff is complicated. And all of that complication is why I've been so annoyed by these kinds of topics over the years. But we were forced to discuss it a little earlier than I thought because of Patrick Beverley going on ESPN today and saying that LeBron and Steph were close to each other all time. Now, to be clear up front, Steph is my second favorite player of this era. I think he has resoundingly established that spot, meaning, yes, he's significantly ahead of Kevin Durant for this era. And I think that is a remarkable accomplishment on his part. That said, I think as the years have gone by, LeBron has almost become a little underrated. And the reason for that is I think he fell short of the MJ standard. And as he's gotten older, it's been drama with the Lakers. And it's been 2 times missing the playoffs and a first-round exit surrounding the championship. And so LeBron's kind of drifting out of focus a little bit. Meanwhile, Steph is having a remarkable season, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. And the Warriors are on a title run. And that's just kind of the nature of recency bias, right? But I want to remind people why LeBron is in the GOAT conversation to begin with. Because now I don't have LeBron ahead of MJ, but there's a reason why he's in that conversation. This is a guy, I talk about shots at the table. We talked about this with Colin Cowherd on Sunday. In order to win a championship, a lot of things have to break your way. Like for Golden State even this year, some things are breaking their way. You catch a matchup, right? With Denver in the first round, you don't have to face Jamal Murray. You don't have to face Michael Porter Jr., right? You go into the second round and John Morant gets hurt. You go into the third round and you get to play a weaker Dallas team because Dallas beat a Phoenix team that had an injury at the point guard position in Chris Paul, right? You have some things go your way. But things go your way every time you win a championship. There's no such thing as you just going through and beating everybody at full strength. It almost never happens. LeBron's last title, 2020, bunch of things went their way. Steph and KD were on their couches. Kyrie Irving was on his couch. And he went through some stars. He went through Damian Lillard. He went through James Harden and Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic. But those guys were all on lesser teams. LeBron, he had Anthony Davis on his team playing at the peak of his powers, right? You need some things to go your way. But if I get 7 opportunities to play the game and 3, sometimes things are going to go not my way, but sometimes things will go my way. And when they do, that's how I end up with 3 or 4 championships. I have to get to the table enough times for things to break my way. And what's so interesting is more often than not, we simplify it down to just who had the trophy, and that's all that matters. LeBron is in the GOAT conversation because he has consistently, in a 20-year career, for basically 19 of those years. I'll take that back. We'll take away this last year because of injuries. And we'll take away the 2019 season, the Mario Hezonja block, the wine under the seat. So for 17 years of a 20-year career, excluding those 2 that I just mentioned and his rookie season, he's been so damn good that his teams had a puncher's chance to win the title. That 17 seasons is exactly what puts him in the GOAT conversation. Because when you're talking about who the best basketball player of all time is, I like to think of that personally as a static situation. If I had to pick a player, irrespective of talent, irrespective of coaching, irrespective of things going your way, what player gives you the best chance to win? And LeBron having 17 of those seasons is what puts him in that conversation. So with Steph, he's had a remarkable run here. But not only, okay, so personally, I think LeBron's peak because of his two-way play and the way he was as a defensive threat, in addition to what he brought as an offensive player, we're seeing this from Giannis right now. He had a world-beating element to him. There wasn't a player in the world that could touch how good he was in 2012 and 2013. Steph, I never thought Steph had a peak like that. But in addition to that, he just hasn't had the same number of shots at the table. His window has been shorter because we lost 2 seasons, right, over the last couple of years because of some bad luck last year with him falling on that step and bruising his tailbone, which led to him being in the play-in tournament. And then the year before him breaking his hand, right? And then outside of that, he hasn't been relevant since like 2013, or he was relevant starting in about 2013. So I'm getting a shorter window of opportunity with Steph, and I'm getting a lower peak ceiling than Steph. So for me, that just simply makes a chasm there. But that's why, for me, when I'm ranking players all time, a couple things. I always have guards and wings separate from bigs. I think they play an entirely different position. To me, it's like comparing an offensive lineman to a quarterback. And then I also split eras. I don't think of anything pre-1980 because it's also just an entirely different sport. So for me, I have MJ and LeBron in the top tier. And I think MJ's clearly above LeBron, but I think LeBron's the only guy who's in that conversation. Then when I drop down from there, that's where I get to the Kobe, the Magic, the Bird, and then I have Steph in that group if he wins a title this year. So for me to say that with that short window, with Steph having only really been relevant in the championship landscape for about half as long as LeBron was, for him to be in the same conversation as Larry freaking Bird and Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant, that's remarkable. That's an unbelievable accomplishment. But that degree of difficulty has to be factored in there. I put in my notes, the 2 guys that Steph's career reminds me the most of in terms of long, like, rankings of the all-time great players, Magic and Kobe strike me as the most realistic comps. Because degree of difficulty does matter. LeBron won a championship with Anthony Davis in 2020, and that was probably the best team that he had, right? And what Anthony Davis did that season was amazing, but he was a play finisher. There was no debate as to who the best player on that team was. Kyrie Irving, it's been exposed now that outside of scoring the basketball, he just doesn't bring that much to a team. So you got to give LeBron a lot more credit for what he did in 2016. And then in 2012 and 2013, Dwayne Wade was a shell of himself, which is how they trailed against the Boston Celtics in 2012, which is how they trailed against the Indiana Pacers in 2012, which is how they trailed to the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2012, which is how they trailed to the Pacers and Spurs in 2013. The reason why those series were so close was because, yes, there were big names involved, but Bosh and Wade were clearly at a level below LeBron. The titles that Steph won with Kevin Durant remind me a lot more of the titles that Kobe won with Shaq or the titles that Magic won with Kareem in the early 80s. They're still titles. They're incredible indicators of what they are as engines. They're incredible indicators of their overall basketball ability, but they aren't the same degree of difficulty as what LeBron did in his 4 championships. And even though in my book, Steph has a finals MVP for 2015, that's why LeBron has 4 of them. There was no debate. There was no conversation about who the best player in the team was. There was a clear engine that was making the whole thing work. And so one of the things that hurts Steph in this regard is that Kevin Durant, those championships with Kevin Durant just had a lower degree of difficulty. But again, I'm just pointing those things out to juxtapose him with LeBron freaking James, the second best basketball player to ever play the game, who for 17 seasons was in the conversation for being the best player in the game and very well might have been and gave his team chances to win championships and won 10 conference titles in the process. So for me to say that Steph is in a tier with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant is not an insult in my opinion. For me to say that Steph was better than Kevin Durant in this era but not as good as LeBron is not an insult to Steph in my opinion. But once again, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, you Steph fans, if you think Steph was better than LeBron, I can't argue with you there. This is a subjective take. It's so much more comes down to personal preference because this isn't tennis and we don't have clear-cut results to dictate this kind of thing. It's all about weighing context. And everyone weighs context differently, so it's impossible to reach common ground. So if you guys want to tell me in the comments, or if you want to tell me if you ever see me out in public and you come up and chat and you say, "Hey, I think Steph's better than LeBron all time," more power to you, man. I can't disagree with you, and I can't prove you wrong. All I can do is disagree with you. But for Steph to have, if he's got one last task he has to accomplish, but if he closes this deal, then it's an unbelievable accomplishment for him to get into that tier of players with his shorter prime.